let's try that again. Just get into that. Let's get into that again. One more time. C sharp. Oh, that's a difficult transition. Let's get into that slowly. Good, one more time. And now back in tempo. Slowly, Jeffrey. Okay, well, welcome, Grace Covenant. I hope you didn't think you were going to get a concert. Welcome to my practice time this afternoon. You know, we all have skill sets that we have to continually refine to do what we do in life. Mine happens to be music. And practice happens to be a daily part of my life. And it has been pretty much for 46 years at some level. Depending on where in life I've been, I've practiced daily for 46 years almost. 30 minutes a day, upwards to 4 hours a day, depending on the demands of the time in life and the needs of what I had to do. So I'm well acquainted with what it feels like to sit here and work. And beginning to learn a new piece, I'm sure you recognize that tune. And at some point in worship, for those of you who join us, you'll get to hear this in its entirety. I'm learning it right now, which means I start by sight reading it. I look at it for the first time, and I play through it. And at this point in my career, much of this is easy to navigate. There are occasionally places where I will have a rhythmic issue, a coordination issue. I will miss an accidental and need to remind myself that there's a note that needs to be fixed. And I've developed a skill set through the years of how to practice. And so I will sight read. If I make a mistake, sight reading, I don't really worry about that. I just make a mental note and make sure that it doesn't happen the next time. If I go through it the second time and I make the exact same mistake, then I know there's an issue there that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, I am going to ingrain a bad habit, a muscle memory, because you're technically coordinating muscle skills with your hands and your feet. So if I continue to play a wrong note or a wrong rhythm, I'm just ingraining a bad habit. And I think that's important, not just in music to fix, but in life, to be careful and to acknowledge when we might be ingraining bad habits and to stop, identify them, and fix them in the moment before we move forward. So that's my basic skill set. There are times when I encounter places in music that require more work and more dissection and slow, meticulous care in order to work through them and to then eventually make music out of them. I recall when I was in graduate school and I was playing a symphonic work by César Franck on the organ, and I had been to a couple lessons, and there was a section, 2 measures, 8 beats, just a very brief, probably 6 seconds in the entire 27-minute piece. And I had been unable to master it. And finally, in one lesson, after doing the things that I knew how to do as a student of the organ, I asked my professor if he had any insight that would help me, because I knew that he had also performed the piece and knew it well. And he just looked at me with a very stone-cold face, and he said, "Jeff, there's nothing in those 2 measures that spending time repeating it 300 times a day for the next week won't fix." And I kind of gulped and heard the truth of that, which is you need to spend a lot more time on this than you think you do to fix it. And if you do that, you'll fix it, was the other message that I heard. And he was right. I spent time just obsessing on that one moment. Probably not unlike a basketball player who stands at the goal line and will shoot 100 rounds and make sure that he hits the basket 100 times before he moves just an inch, and then does it again and again to make sure he's perfected that. It's a similar sort of thing, that you just focus on this one moment and you fix it before you move on to the next. And so occasionally I will encounter places in music that require that kind of detail and focus and energy in order to make music, and to not be a horrible speed bump in the course of a piece of repertoire that I'm learning. And when I think about practicing the organ, and I think about what is going on in our society with all of the white supremacy, with the death of George Floyd, and the protests that have been going on, with the realization that we really still have work to do with civil rights, and that our black and brown sisters and brothers still do not have equality. When I look at this moment, and I think about how I practice, and about how I learn, and I think about civil rights, and I think maybe we've been going through the motions thinking we've gotten it when we really haven't. And this is the moment, this is the time to stop and analyze it in a new way and fix it. There's actually, I feel, a sense of energy that I've not experienced before around this issue, not just in black and brown communities, but with people like me, with white men, with our entire culture. I feel like there's been a bubbling up of energy around this that says we really haven't fixed this and we need to. And that's the hard message to hear, but it's also the message that I feel like if this type of energy applied to civil rights and dealing with racial inequality, if it's addressed with all the energy that it needs, if this is that moment that you have to take 2 measures and just knock it out, just spend day after day after day working on it, then that's what it needs to be. And I actually feel like that's what's happening here. I feel like it's different. And in the metaphor of using music, when you fix that in a piece of music, then the whole piece makes more sense. And I'm hoping that as a society, I'm hoping that for those of us in the church and for all humanity's sake, that we will fix this issue and finally have equal rights where everyone is treated fairly and justly in the sight of God and in the sight of each other. That we truly can, as the hymn we will sing Sunday, we will lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring of the harmonies of liberty. And so I have practice to do. I have to keep my skills going, and you have things you have to do, and we all have to, in this moment, do the hard work ahead of us to continue to address racism and inequality in this culture. So I hope you will join me, and I hope as we continue to navigate through this pandemic that you will, to the extent that you can, stay home, and by all means stay safe. Continue, Grace Covenant, to stay connected and to know that you are loved. Thanks be to God.